Another long 49ers practice is over, and this one was competitive. We even had a fight. We had punches thrown on multiple occasions today. A scrap out there between Jordan Mason and Diamador Lenoir. Here's what happened. After a run, Fred Warner and Jordan Mason got into a little bit of a shoving match. Warner was really vocal throughout all of practice today. He was talking his crap. Warner backed off, but Diamador Lenoir, who kind of got into that shoving match, the 49ers cornerback, calls himself the hyena, he did not back off. Diamador Lenoir kept on trying to swipe the ball away from Jordan Mason, and as he was doing that, Jordan Mason started getting more and more pissed off. After a few seconds, they're facing each other in the open field away from the scrum. Looked like Mason and Diamador Lenoir are thinking about what to do. And then they're like, hell, we're just going to start swinging at each other. So haymaker, haymaker, haymaker. Both had their helmets on, so probably not the best idea to be swinging at a guy with a helmet on. But, I mean, it was a legitimate fight. And then they stopped fighting. They were pulled apart, and both were in on the very next play. So practice continued without a beat. I would imagine at this point the 49ers are just sick of playing themselves, right? They want to play somebody else in a real game. Well, the Steelers are going to be on the schedule on September 10th. A little bit later on, Ladarius Hamilton, recent acquisition for the 49ers on the defensive line, he punched Leroy Watson in the face. And Watson had a helmet on, so it didn't really get him in the face, just got him in the helmet. Leroy Watson's going to get some credit for Kyle Shanahan for his restraint. Watson just sat there and started laughing. Like, you could hear the laugh for all the way from the sideline. So, never a good idea to punch somebody that has a helmet on. You can't break your hand. Kyle Shanahan has talked about that before. That's why he doesn't like fights. That's one of the reasons that he doesn't like fights. But there is some competitiveness at practice. That's always the caveat that you say during training camp. Well, these guys have to be hungry. Great 49ers teams in the past have fought. I mean, last year's team had the big Ayuk-Fred Warner fight, right? But I talk about the 94 49ers, the last time they won a Super Bowl. Gary Plummer, well, had many fights against William Floyd, bar none, right? William bar none Floyd, the fullback. Those teams got after it at training camp in Rockland. So you don't freak out about fights. You just note them as you go through, and you can take them as entertainment value if you're a football fan. Today, nobody got hurt, and it was Lenoir working there against Jordan Mason. Anyway, that was followed up by a lot of team drills. I mean, this was a long practice, and the 49ers really did get after it today. Brock Purdy finished up on fire. 4 of 4 on the final drive of the game for Brock Purdy, and that final drive was impressive. It started off with a wheel route, deep ball to Kyle Juszczyk, oohs and ahs from the crowd, perfectly placed to Kyle Juszczyk, and it finished off with a nice arcing touchdown pass, just a pretty ball from Brock Purdy to Deebo Samuel. And the offense was definitely fired up coming off the field, just because when there is some feistiness, when there's an altercation earlier on in practice, it's always between the offense and the defense. You never see the offense fighting themselves or the defense fighting themselves. Well, when you punctuate it the way the 49ers first team offense did with the touchdown drive and move the ball against the defense and such a pretty throw from Brock Purdy to Deebo Samuel, it's going to be some good emotion there at the end. So Purdy was good through 2 more touchdown passes, one to George Kittle and one to Brandon Ayuk in red zone work. Some struggles a little bit early on with some incompletion, so he ended up 13 of 24 total. He was much better, though, in the dedicated red zone and dedicated move the ball work at the end of practice. There was almost an interception from Javon Kinlaw against Brock Purdy. I think he was trying to go underneath the Jordan Mason. Kinlaw was able to reach back, stretch out his arm, and knock the ball down, almost bring it in for a pick. Kinlaw then did 5 to 10 push-ups to punish himself for not intercepting the football. Other 2 49ers quarterbacks, Sam Darnold today, he had a good move the ball session at the end. I thought Darnold, he hit Chris Conley on a little slant that was really impressive. He was quick with the football then to practice. I had Darnold, I believe, at 6 of 8. I'm going to verify for you right now. No, 6 of 10. 6 of 10 for Sam Darnold, 4 of 8 for Trey Lance. Trey Lance welcomed Anthony Miller to the team. New wideout. We talked about the 49ers planning to sign him yesterday. It became official today. The former Chicago Bear caught a pass from Trey Lance in the red zone, just a little pass into the flat. It wasn't a touchdown or anything. But Lance, who went 4 of 8, one of his 4 completions was to the new guy, Anthony Miller. That's an update for you, by the way. The 49ers waived Daz Newsome, who was with them on the practice squad last year, and they gave Anthony Miller, the veteran, Daz Newsome's old jersey number of 84. Just to explain that move, Daz had been the least productive 49ers wideout on the roster. I know he caught that ball from Sam Darnold in the game against the Broncos, but even Isaiah Winstead had done more than Daz Newsome. And the 49ers are in a position where they, desperately needed somebody with some return capability. And Daz Newsome, I don't think, has the same return capability as Anthony Miller, who has 8 kick returns and 5 punt returns in his NFL career. With Danny Gray out, with Ray McLeod out, the 49ers are in a position where they do have to have that adaptability to that portion of the game. So that's what we saw from the quarterbacks at practice. I could kind of go through the log here a little bit, but I first want to address what Kyle Shanahan talked about before practice today, because that's when his availability was. Kyle Shanahan, I asked him specifically because there's a new third quarterback rule this year, which came into being because of the 49ers' plight in the NFC Championship game last year. So basically, as long as this quarterback, the third quarterback, is on the 53-man roster, he could come in an emergency situation if the first 2 quarterbacks are not medically cleared to return to the game. That third quarterback can come in without taking a game day 46-man roster spot. So he has to be one of the inactives, but he has to be on the 53-man roster. And I asked Kyle Shanahan how that procedure is going to work. If he's going to have to tip his hand to the public, to the media, about who that third quarterback is, or if he's just going to be able to run all 3 quarterbacks out there, practice every week, and then on the game, you look at the inactive list and maybe that way you find out. Well, Kyle Shanahan said you actually have to designate the emergency quarterback. He got a memo from the league last night. So we will ultimately find out who is QB2 and who's QB3. It could alternate on a week-by-week basis, right? But we will ultimately find out who's QB3 based on who's designated as the 49ers emergency quarterback. Kyle Shanahan found out the procedure from the league in a memo last night. He said he hadn't fully read it, but he told me that it is going to have to be a specific thing and how the 49ers implement this. So I think in all likelihood right now you're looking at a QB room, obviously, of Brock Purdy at 1, and then Darnold and Lance at 2 or 3. We don't know which is going to be which for sure, but the 49ers are going to designate one of those guys as the emergency quarterback and one of those guys as the QB2. And it's worth talking about because last year the 49ers had such quarterback injury catastrophe that they ended up needing to dig deep into that QB room. Today, Aaron Banks' injury report limped off the field during practice. Nick Zakelj took Aaron Banks' spot at left guard, not John Feliciano. The second-year man, Nick Zakelj, was the first man in at left guard. Feliciano's going to make the team. He's got center guard versatility to back up, but I found it interesting. There's enough confidence in Nick Zakelj to be the guard number 2. I mean, they brought Feliciano in as insurance, but it's great for the 49ers if one of their young guys is able to take that spot. I am going to check to see if there's anything else that we need to cover from this practice, so just give me 1 second. It was a long one, and on long practices like this, I take a lot of notes, and I want to make sure I get it right. And it's really, really windy out here. That's why I stand by the helmet, to be able to shield against some of this wind. Oh, Brandon Ayuk caught a ball after the fight. A couple plays later, caught a ball from Brock Purdy on the sideline and kind of tossed the ball over to Lenoir. That another example of the competitiveness and the feistiness today, because Lenoir obviously was the one with the fight early on. Nice pass breakup from rookie Deshaun Jameson against Deebo Samuel. We're going to be keeping a close eye on if Deshaun Jameson makes the 53-man roster here. Cut down day is in exactly a week. And, one thing to watch is the dead money. And, everybody's talking about the Nick Bosa contract. He's in New York today. We don't know if that has to do with the fact that his agent is based in New York, Brian Ayrault, but it might. I'll tell you one thing, and I'm going to get deeper into this, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. The 49ers would really benefit financially if Nick Bosa signed his contract before cutdown day next week. You might ask why? Well, the reason is they're going to save money on the 2023 cap if Bosa, when Bosa does sign, we'll put it that. But if he signs before next week, they're going to open up that cap space because the contract's going to be backloaded for this 2023 season, and cutting down the roster to 53, when you look at the top 53 contracts on this team that are going to make that cut down, if you're projecting that, the 49ers are going to be right up against the cap or a little bit over it. So it would really help them if Nick Bosa signs sooner rather than later, so they don't have to do any other maneuvering that's outside the pocket. Anyway, that was practice today. Very competitive. Brock Purdy finished up strong. 49ers defense did some good stuff. Oh, there was a Trey Swilling interception. Sam Darnold threw downfield, and it didn't look to be really Sam Darnold's fault. The ball hit off of Ronnie Bell's leg. They called offensive pass interference against Ronnie Bell. A couple players tangled up. Somehow off the deflection, Trey Swilling made the interception. So credit to him. 49ers defense creeping up near 15 picks. I'm going to add that up here tonight in a little bit. So stay tuned for 49ers intel. They had 15 interceptions in training camp last year. So no, they had 20 last year and they're creeping up on 20 this year. I'm going to tally that up for you. So stay tuned for 49ers intel after this busy day on the practice field.